Hi everyone, my name is Jen and welcome to the Book Refuge and welcome to my July reading wrap up and stats. So I think this is the third or fourth month where I'm doing kind of the wrap up is not me going over every single book that I've read. If you want to see that, because you'll see in a minute with my stats, I had quite a few 5-star reads and I only pick 5 of them to talk about in this video, the ones that were my favorites. You can go back and watch any of my weekly wrap-ups and I go in detail about pretty much every book that I read. So if there's one of them you're interested in, make sure you do that. But the way this is going to go is I'm going to go over my stats, the genres I read, what kind of books I read, stuff like that, and then I will get into my top 5 books of the month. Also, something I tried to do this month is I have a new ring light, which means I'm able to film in a few different places that I haven't been before because I can actually have lighting there. So praise the gods for that. And I put the ones that, like, a lot of these are 5 stars, but because I can't talk about all of them, I put them back here. So if you see one you're particularly interested about, it's definitely talked about in one of those wrap-ups. Also, to know before I get going, please make sure that you like and subscribe. No one likes to be the one who mentions it, but it really helps with the, all-knowing algorithm. If you're liking this, comment. I love talking with you guys. I'm still able to talk to every single person who comments on something. If you have a question, you want a personal book recommendation, I'm here to help. Let me know if there's any trope recommendations you are particularly wanting. I make 2 or 3 of those every week, so I'm always looking for what trope you guys are interested in. So make sure you let me know. All right, without further ado, let's go ahead and dive into this. I'll have my stats put up here on the side. I had 7 3-star books, 5 3.5-star books, 21 4-stars, 6 4.5 stars, and 29 5 stars, which is fabulous, absolutely fabulous. So that's what the star ratings were. Then for book-wise, that should be 67 books this month, which I feel good about, of course. That's a total of 21,211 pages, and that averages out to 684 pages per day. That always stuns me a little bit because I'm like, wow, how does that happen? And then that is in 15 physical books, 29 ebooks, 36 audiobooks, and 4 e-arcs. So you notice that that is kind of messed up. And you also see there's more than 15 books behind me. But what I do is I listen to a lot of these on Audible, and sometimes I follow along with the actual book. Sometimes I bought these after I listened to the audio. That's the case for all of the Cressley Cole books. Is I listened to all of them on Audible and then I purchased the books. So just if you're wondering, not that anybody cares, but I'm letting you know, there's a lot of times where I'm listening to the audio and I'm reading it on my ebook, or I'm listening to it and following along, just because I like that sometimes, especially if the series has a really great narrator like Robert Peckoff and also the lady who did some of the Lisa Kleypas. I like to read along and listen because I just like the voices that they're using. So I do that. Then the genre breakdown. So I read 14 historical romances, 27 contemporaries, 7 erotic, 16 paranormal, 3 fantasy romance, and 1 mystery thriller. It had romance in it too, but the mystery is kind of the main focus of it. So that was really, really fun. It was fun to have paranormal on there so strongly. And as you'll know, just kind of talking over what my month was a little bit like, it was around it's so funny. I started it, I think, on July 5th, because I started it when I got back. I think I started when I got back from the 4th of July with my family. I started the Immortals After Dark series, and I just went bananas with it. So I'm going to get into what my top 5 reads are, because I'm going to go into real depth about why these books are my favorite. But I just wanted to say, I tried to pick one of the IAD to put on this list, but I don't currently have one that is my favorite of all of them. I'm tied between like 3 or 4 of them that are kind of up at the top, but I did this month, if you haven't seen it for some reason, I made an entire video where I talk about Immortals After Dark. So I'm just going to kind of leave that as my like tribute to the series, and we'll see over time like which ones I'm drawn to reread the most. Obviously I own them all now because I can't help myself. So we'll see, you know, which ones kind of like come forward. Okay, so as well as going over a kind of overview again of a few things. So there was a couple series that I did get completely sucked into this month, and one of them, you know, was IAD. One of them was I just read the entire Lisa Kleypas trilogy plus another book, which was crazy because I try to spread out my Lisa Kleypas, but once I started that series, I just sucked it right up. I loved it. And then the other one is the Victorian Rebel series by Carrie and Cole, which you can see those 3 there. And so I picked which one of those I wanted to have as my favorite. And though I really love The Highwaymen, the book that starts it off, which is one of Jess from Peace Love Books' favorites, I really love how it sets up the series. This is a dark historical romance. There is both our hero and heroines have been through some crazy things in this series. They are pretty strongly Scottish. A lot of the main characters are Scottish, and that's super fun. This is a romance series narrated by a man as well. His name is Jim Faglioni or something. I don't know how to pronounce it, so pardon me. And those are all on Audible Escape. So if that is a subscription that you're interested in, or you really love romance, historical romance, contemporary, erotic, LGBT, any kind of romance, I highly suggest you check it out, especially if you like audiobooks, because it works the same way as KAU, Kindle Unlimited. You can have up to 10 titles at a time, and it's just completely changed the game. I've had it last month and this month, and I've listened to 5 times as many audiobooks as I did before, because before I just had Audible and you only got 1 a month, or you could buy credits. And so I was spending a good amount of money on audiobooks because I never found one of the free services that really did it for me. And Audible Escape, I feel like, has the best options because it's Amazon and it just has so many to choose from. But anyway, that's, you know, neither here nor there. But I picked book number 2, The Hunter, in the Victorian Rebel series, as one of my favorite reads. Probably my favorite in this series so far. I still have 2 books left to read in this series, but this one is so good. So this is about Christopher Argent, who he grew up in a prison. His mother had to sell her body in there for food and survival. And one night when some men are going to rape his mother, he tries to stop it. And it ends up with him being beaten pretty bad, and his mother is killed. And he, you know, he's broken after that. He kind of shuts off. He becomes kind of an emotionless shell, and he becomes a killer. So he learns to be the best at what he does. He is friends with Dorian Blackwell, who we meet in the first book. And they kind of have this twisted friendship where they do each other favors when really they're like bros for life, but they would never call it that because men and their feelings, you know how that goes. But he is an assassin for hire, and he gets sent to kill this woman named Millicent LaCour, who's a famous actress. And he has a couple rules. He doesn't kill children. He doesn't hurt anyone in front of children. But when he meets Millie, she's performing, or he doesn't meet her, he sees her. And the way Millie performs is she always picks one person in the audience and then like does her performance to that person. And she does her performance to Christopher, and he is like, it's insta-love. This is practically a fated mate book. Like, I love that so much about it, because he has that connection with her. But then he's like, nope, I got to do my job. I can't just let her go because she's a pretty face. So he meets her at a party. He's basically like sidles up to her, gets her alone, is going to strangle her, like face to face, has his hands around her throat. And Millie is like, if you don't kiss me, I'm going to die. And so he kisses her. Almost has sex with her there, but they get interrupted. And so she leaves, and he's just like, I was supposed to kill this woman, and I kissed her. What the hell? So he goes to make another attempt, and again, he ends up kissing her. And so finally, he decides, he tells her, he's like, I want you. So if you will be mine, I'll protect you. And a little more than that, he asks to sleep with her. And if she will sleep with him one night, he'll protect her. And he has some serious sexual damage because of things he's seen done to his mother. And also, he doesn't realize that what he's asking her to do is what was done to his mother. And also, the other layer to this is that Millie has a son named Jacob, who is the reason she's going to be killed, because she was supposedly the mistress of this certain guy, and now he wants her silenced. And Christopher agrees to kill her as long as the boy doesn't get killed. But then he meets the boy, and he's like, if I kill Millie, I'm doing to this boy what was done to me. And so they just have this very intense relationship where he claims her, he tells people, he's like, she's mine now, you need to stop this contract, because I will kill anyone who tries to come for her. But of course they don't listen. And so he ends up killing a lot of people. This is a very bloody book. I'll stop giving any more spoilers than I do now. But there's so much more to this story. I mean, I won't get into any more of that, but I just loved it. I love seeing a hero who thinks he's bad. So Tortured Heroes, I put the Victorian Rebel series in my Tortured Heroes video. I love that he just thinks he can never be redeemed, like that he doesn't even have feelings. And Millie is just so drawn to him and is just like, I want you. Even though you're kind of sexually blackmailing me, I don't care, because now I have a reason to say yes, kind of thing. So this was so good. Next, which one should we talk about next? I'll talk about, this was a reread for me. I was really scared to reread it, but it was on Audible Escape. And I was very scared to reread it because it was one of my favorite books by one of my favorite authors for a very long time. It was me and my best friend's like favorite book. And I was real nervous. And that's Beyond Eden by Catherine Coulter. So I believe this came out in 1992 was when it originally came out. And sorry, the lighting is going to be bad for this, so I'll show it to you and I'll sit back here. Yep, that's not going to work. And this book is about a woman named Sydney who, when she is 18, she's raped by her sister's husband. And so her family's very, very rich, but she is not treated well by them at all. Her father is a judge, her sister's a lawyer, her sister's older than her by 10 years, and she marries this Italian prince, or Middle Eastern, or Mediterranean prince. And he is a pedophile. And he isn't able to get a hold of her before she's 18, but he rapes her horribly, brutally. And though her sister walks in on it happening, knows that her sister was raped, knows what it is about her husband, but her family is so obsessed with appearances, so obsessed with what they see on the outside, that they just basically tell her to shut up and deal with it. And so this is amazing book to read in 2020 as well, because the things that were being addressed in 1992 are some of the things that I feel like in some aspects have really been taken care of well, and other things haven't. And I feel like it was still just like so timely, because Sydney, she has to deal with this like on her own. It's horrible. It's horrible. But she ends up becoming a famous model. So I think it's like 6 years later now. She's 24, 25. And she ends up needing a bodyguard because reasons. And so we're also being told that, like, this is a dual story, but like Sydney's is the one that's, and when she becomes a model, she goes by the name Eden, just Eden, like Cher or Madonna or whatever. She goes by Eden because she doesn't want anyone to connect her with what happened to her in Italy as a young woman, because the press still remembers. Her family is famous. This was a prince. She like accused him of doing this to her, and she was basically, you know, slut shamed, and like it was her fault, and things like that. And so she ends up needing a bodyguard, and we end up getting S.C. Taylor, or T.S. S.C. Taylor, yeah, ends up being her bodyguard. And so this is a man who he used to be a police officer, and after seeing how some different situations have went down by like the rich and famous getting away with things, he kind of left the police force and became a private investigator / security guard when needed and stuff like that. So he ends up being Eden's security guard, and they end up falling for each other. So, but we don't know who's trying to hurt her, what's going on. And this is really, the reason why it's so good is that it's a story of this woman of like, after she's been treated that way, like her whole family just treats her like shit. Her grandmother is the only one who treats her well. And then she's a famous model, but all those relationships are fake because she's using a fake name and no one really knows who she is, and she can't share who she is with anyone. And then she gets Taylor, who he is falling in love with her, and he knows she's keeping secrets from him, and he won't pry. Like, he refuses to pry because he's like, I love you enough that if it takes 10 years, you can take your time telling me about who you are. And I love Taylor. I forgot how much I loved him. This book held up really, really well for me. I was really worried about that. I thought it might be cringy, but because the issues that they're dealing with is something that we've all seen before, we've all read a book about it before. If you've watched, like, this read kind of like a tale of like SVU, except from like the victim's point of view. So it just still felt really timely. There's some things that really dated it because this was written in 1992, but because of the kind of story we're telling, like, I could still picture it in my mind as happening right now. Like, besides there not really being cell phones used, and there's a few times where like communication can't happen because we don't have a way to reach each other, it still felt very timely with the issues that happened to Sydney and with how her family treats her. Which are just as infuriating now as they were then. And I love it. It was on Audible Escape. I'm so glad I still loved this book. I was really afraid to read it, but I'm so glad I did because I loved it. I really loved it. All right. Next, let's talk about The Bride by Julie Garwood. So I finally read this book. This is a second copy that I have. I read a big, beautiful copy of this that I annotated and sent off to my friend Kayla over at On the Fritz, because we're doing a traveling romance book where we are going to like annotate each other's books. And I hadn't read this yet, but I had a feeling I would love it. And I didn't want to annotate one that I'd already read before, because I like when my annotations are like guesses of like what's going to happen, because then I'm not like spoiling it for a person who's going to read it who's brand new. Like when I read an Outlander book, you know, I am annotating those. I'm like saying stuff that's going to happen later. So if I were to give that to my friend who'd never read it, I couldn't, because it would spoil everything. Whereas annotating a book that I haven't read before, I'm not spoiling anything with my guesses or like saying things. But anyway, enough of that. The point is, I freaking love this book, okay? And it was on that list of historical romances that everyone tells me to read, that I was afraid to do it because I was like, oh, well, what if this doesn't like hold up to what I want in a historical romance? But I'm quickly learning that I like the darker, deeper historical romances as long as even a woman who has no agency, she still has it. So to me, that's the difference between, sometimes in the case of like a Joanna Lindsay, historical romance, and then like a historical romance like this, or like Kingdom of Dreams, where we're very aware that the female doesn't have power in the sense of the time, like she can't own anything or own herself, but she still owns herself, and she's such a powerful character and form of will that it just kind of stuns everyone around her. So this book is about Jamie and Alec. I'm going to put it up here like the other ones, so I'm not holding it. And Jamie is the stepdaughter of this laird, and her stepfather and her stepsisters, they all love her. In fact, they rely on her so much that she basically runs her father's keep. Now, I didn't ever see exactly how old her age is. Like, I don't know if this is a case of like Kingdom of Dreams where she's like 17, but someone let me know if you know how old she is. I haven't reread through this. I will reread this book when I get back, the annotated one. I'm going to reread it and everything. But I know that she has 4 older sisters, and they're all kind of within marriageable age. So my guess is that she's probably only a teenager because she's the youngest of all of these. So my guess was that she was between 16 and 18, was my guess. And her father, her stepfather, he's gotten into a wee bit of trouble with the king. And so as kind of a punishment, he has to marry off one of his daughters to, well, actually 2 of his daughters, to some Scottish lairds. So that's where we meet Alec Kinsed, who he's not thrilled about this either. He wanted to marry another Scottish lass, but he already had a wife. She killed herself. He needs another wife. And the king is like, I need to punish this guy, and you're taking too long to pick a wife, so go to his keep, pick a wife, bring her back to Scotland. So Alec and his friend, can't remember his friend's name, they show up, and they're going to pick 2 of his daughters. So Jamie's stepfather, his brilliant plan, because he doesn't want to lose Jamie, because she's his baby, he loves her so much, and also she does all my business for me, he's planning to hide her. But there is a very well-meaning stable hand who helped raise Jamie, taught her how to ride and to fight and to be just a really strong woman. He knows what's happening. He knows that if she stays here with her stepfather, who again, he's very loving, but he's kind of stupid, and her older sisters who rely on her to be their strength, that she will wither away and not get the happiness that she deserves. So when this stable hand meets Alec, he quickly assesses him. He actually brings him to meet some horses, and he assesses how Alec treats horses, because he says it's a very clear thing about a man. The way that he treats a mare is the way that he'll treat a wife, which, yes, there's symbolism to it, but it's funny. That's the thing. This book is funny too. So a lot of those things you're seeing where you roll your eyes, where you're like, really, we're doing that. It's supposed to be funny. There's actually like a foreword in the book by Julie Garwood where she's like, people told me I shouldn't make this so funny, but it needed to be funny because we're dealing with really serious things. And I just think it works so well. It works so well. And so seeing how Alec treats this horse, and, you know, just that he can tell he's a good man just by, you know, he says some things of like, I'm not going to abuse whoever this woman is, but like, I'm looking for someone who's going to be a wife and have my kids, and I don't want to have to deal with, you know, I want someone who will listen to me. The stable hand, the stable master, he's like, I'm going to tell you, I'm going to do you a favor, and please don't betray me because I love this girl like a daughter. But the laird has a youngest child that he's going to try to hide from you, and she's the one you want. And Alec's just like, okay, Mr. Stablehand, thanks for that. But then Alec meets her, and first he overhears her talking, and then he meets her, and he knows too. So anyway, so yes, he ends up bringing her back to Scotland with him, and he seems like he's going to be so frustrating, right? So I was afraid. I was nervous because, but the thing is like that stable hand sets us up, because the way he evaluates him, the way you see him treat the horse, the things that he says, you know that he's a good man. So even though he'll say things to her, you quickly learn he's saying those things to keep her from being afraid. Like, he knows she's scared, and that this girl who, though she's been carrying such burdens, she's just a child, which, you know, she's young. This is medieval times. It's even, you know, worse than other times. So he will pick at her and say kind of mean things to keep her from being afraid. And it will just get her like so fired up that she'll forget to be afraid, and she'll just like smack back, and she'll be like, oh, so I'm just supposed to be your property now and do whatever you say. And Alex will be like, yeah, you are. And she'll be like, well, that's not going to happen. And so, oh God, it's just so great. And then they're like, oh, the sexy times in this book are so good. Oh my gosh. Okay. More like brief overview. So basically, I'm selling this because this book is like 20 years old, and if you haven't tried it yet, you need to freaking try it. So he said all these things to her on this trip to Scotland. Like, he doesn't say she's going to be a servant, but like, you're going to sit down and be quiet and have my babies. You're not going to interfere with anything. If you do, you'll be punished. Don't get in my way. Again, some of that you're like, okay, whatever. But Jamie's just like, okay, this is going to be a strange land. I'm going to meet all these new people. I don't want to cause any problems. But the first day she's there, it becomes clear that everyone is going to love this girl. Like, everyone's going to love her. And maybe that's all that I'll say. But Jamie has some amazing skills. Like I said, she helped her father run the place. She has nursing skills. So she helps save certain people. She is just so bold and brash, and just, I don't want to spoil like all the great things that happen. I've only told you just a tiny bit of the setup. I know it sounds like a lot, but like, I want you to trust this book if you've heard about it and you've been nervous. That's what I'm here for. Like, I feel like I do this with historical romance every month. There's a new one I've tried where I'm like, I know it seems intense, or like it won't be, you know, you won't be able to swallow what's happening, but trust me, Alec is set up this way so you can watch him crumble to dust in front of Jamie and be remade from the clay that's left behind. Like, it's so good. And also, he's just really closed off because he lost a wife already, and she was someone that, like, he wanted to really love her, and there's a lot of hate held his way because they believe it's his fault she killed herself. And so there's a lot of, like, rumors spread about him. And Jamie just comes in and immediately gains respect of everyone, and it's one of those cases where, like, the new bride has usurped the Lord, because everyone's supposed to listen to him, but they all want to listen to her because they see that she's wise and so brave and kind. And I cried so many times, guys. I was talking with my friend Lynn, hi Lynn, the other day about a book we're just about to talk about anyway. And I was like, oh, I cried so much. And she's like, I think you cry more than me, because I get emotional, but like, I don't cry as much as you. And I'm like, it's true. I cry at happy things all the time. And I told Kayla, I was like, there are literal tears on this book, because I was like crying, and then I like touched the book and like wiped tears on the book because I loved it so much. And it's still in my head. Like, I read this one 2 weeks ago, and it's in my head. I can't stop thinking about it. I loved it so much. So, okay, enough talking about that one. Let's move on to the two more contemporary ones that I read. So, two more books I want to talk about. I'm going to say my favorite for last. So I read this little duology by Brianna Hale called, it's called Love Don't Cost a Thing, and it's actually like a billionaire duology. And the first one's called Come to Daddy, which I loved. It also gets, well, I gave that one 4.5 stars, I think, because it was a little too rushed, which didn't make sense to me because the first book was only like 220 pages, but then the second book was like 360 pages or something like that. And I was like, you could have split the difference a little bit, and I would have loved the first one as much. But I can talk about the second one independently. You're supposed to read them in order. Okay, you should, because they're overlapping time. However, the plot of this one, I can say it independently. Kind of, right? But the first book is a sugar daddy, sugar baby book. This woman owes a lot of money to this family, and the like brother of this family, Misha, he decides to find a way to pay her debt for her. And so he like offers to be her sugar daddy. So it feels like she's earning the money, and they end up falling in love. But at the end of that book, it sets up this book, Lap of Luxury, which is the assistant of Misha. She gets kidnapped by Misha's brother because Misha and his girlfriend, they escape when the brother finds out what was going on. And so the brother, see, I'm saying brother because I can't pronounce his name. I think it's not Polish. It's like, I can't remember where they're from, but I can't pronounce his name. But anyway, so he kidnaps the assistant, who they have already had some interactions together, which you see at the beginning of this book, because it replays some things we've seen, and they have this animal attraction to each other. And they have this interesting kink. So they have a few kinks here in Lap of Luxury. So there's a time which happens at, like, someone like breaks in and like tries to kill her. Yeah, someone like tries to kill her to get at Misha. I think that's what happens. And so the brother like kills this guy like viciously. And she gets, I think her name is Bethany, maybe. She gets like super turned on by watching him kill this guy. Okay, this is kinky, okay. And he realizes she's like super turned on, and he's like, what's happened? Like, sorry, he doesn't make this face. He makes like, what? And so they have a moment where he gets all like up in her space, and then she's like, oh my God, what's happening? And she kind of like runs away and everything. And he is so just like, that moment, he's like, she's mine. She's what I've been looking for. She's attracted by this. She's into me. I need her. And so then later on, he ends up kidnapping her and taking her to his private yacht to try to torture information out of her of where Misha and his girlfriend might be. And this torturing her includes playing a lot of fun games she's consensually into. Like, he doesn't torture her. They have fun, kinky times, including one where he pretends the yacht is getting attacked to give her a fun, like, chase experience, which she loves. Like, she gets super turned on by it. It's amazing. And they have this crazy, so it's like, it's a captor-captive romance. That's what's happening. But it's also like, there's more to it. And she also doesn't have feelings for him because he kidnapped her. She is kind of forced to face the feelings she already was having because he kidnaps her. And yeah, I don't, there's not too much else to say that doesn't get into the specifics of it, but I really loved this duology. I really did love Misha's book too, Come to Daddy, which again, you do need to read to know what's going on in Lap of Luxury. He was just a little more like squishy, soft and squishy for me. Like, he's a little bit of a cinnamon roll, even like I would consider him kind of the beta to his brother's like alpha kind of. But that doesn't mean he's not a great daddy. And like that daddy relationship, so he's 41 and she's 22, or maybe 42 and 22. So, and then the other book is an age gap as well, but I think she's like 22 and he's 36, so it's not quite as big of a age gap. But I really liked it. I'm really getting into Brianna Hale. Some of her books are a little bit over my head for me, like too much, but I'm loving everything else. Like, one of the other books I read this month was her newest book. I think it's Devram's Discipline, which is a daddy kink book, which is a big age gap. It's a 30-year age gap, but I really love her books. They're just never like long enough is my like complaint with her. All right, the last book I gotta talk about, which I've talked about in like the last 2 weeks. I made an entire video just so that I could talk about this book because I wanted to gush more about it. I can't wait till it comes out. This was an arc, but the first book in the series is out, which I haven't read, but I will be reading probably today because I can start my August reads today, and I want to read it real bad. But this was called The Takeover by T.L. Swan. This is the second book in the Miles High Club. They are standalones, though. I wasn't confused at all reading this book. I got an e-arc of it from NetGalley, and I devoured this book. Oh, my word. The main tropes we're dealing with this. We're dealing with a widowed single mom of 3. We're dealing with a, like, one-night stand leads to more. We're dealing with a hate to love, kind of hate on one side, but like hate to love. And we're dealing with hilarity, like hilarity. It is so funny. You wouldn't think that from the cover. I don't even know what cover would make it seem hilarious. Like, I don't know what that cover looks like, but this one doesn't. Like a billionaire in a suit. Oh yeah, billionaire. That's the other. That's the other thing. That's the other one. It is a millionaire. But this is about Tristan and Monica. Sorry, I can't talk. And Monica is, how old is she? She's 38. I think she's 38. She is obviously the single widowed mother running her deceased husband's, her past husband's business. And Tristan is the acquisitions manager for his family's company. And so they first meet when he comes in to try to acquire her company. And she is just like, F off, dude. Like, he is a little cocky when he comes in, but he's not actually like rude. He's just honestly stating the facts of like, this is what's happening with your business. You should let me take it over. You can spend more time with your kids. And she's just like, screw you. He then tries to apologize and ask her out to dinner and is like, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to offend you. Let's try again. And she's just like, you're asking me on a date? Fuck off. No. And so she does it again. And then 6 months later, it might not be that long, but it's a few months later, she is at a business retreat in Paris, in France, and he is a guest speaker there. And immediately they have chemistry again. He sees her and kind of like calls her out in front of a bunch of people, which is like, come on, Tristan. And they end up having what they think will be a one-night stand. But in the act of it, they have so much fun. Like, she's nervous about parts of her body and he's like, you don't realize how lucky I am. And like, I'm the first person since like your husband, and like, thank you for trusting me. And then it's so funny. And so one night leads to two nights leads to him inviting her to an extended weekend in Paris, which they weren't in Paris, they were different. Then they go to Paris. He's like, I have another conference and I would love to spend the days with you if you'd come. And so she spends a long weekend knowing like it can only be this, because when we get back, I'm a mother of 3 and you're kind of like my rival. And no matter how much fun we're having, I have 3 kids. He's 5 years younger than her. She's like, this can't be anything more. But when they get back, Tristan's like, what? Like, you really are cutting me off from this? Like, why? And so he goes to her house to like surprise her. And her sons are there. And not only are her sons home, they were like digging through her bag for presents and they found a pair of Tristan's boxers because she'd like worn them back to her room and packed them. And so they found them. And her oldest son is like, Mom, did you go on like a booty call trip instead of business trip? And he's being irrationally angry because his mom can obviously date people. That's not it. He just is like, thinks that's why she went. And then Tristan shows up and rings the doorbell. And so her oldest son, Fletcher, punches him. He falls down the steps. A skateboard sweeps his leg out and he like sprains his foot. And so it's like a romantic comedy because Tristan is like, oh my God, I can't believe this. And so he like drives away and she's chasing after him like, Tristan, I'm sorry. And he's like, I don't want anything to do with these people. Just in the moment. It's hilarious. They were a lot, like her middle son is like making death signs to him and it's crazy. But then 2-3 weeks later, her oldest son, Fletcher, the one who punched him and knocked him down the stairs, is trying to get an internship at Miles Media. And Fletcher walks in and Tristan's like, "You've got to be kidding me." But Tristan likes the kid. He likes his well, not his attitude, but he likes the drive that he sees in him, the abilities that he sees in him. And he knows that he sees what this kid is trying to do. And so Fletcher had kept it a secret from his mom, that he was trying to get an internship because he wanted it to be a secret until it happened. And so he ends up getting a job there, and Monica's like, "You can't work for Tristan, oh my God." And he's like, "Mom, he's the best. I want to learn about this from him and then steal all this information from it." Not steal, but like take all the things he's taught me and run our company one day. And Tristan is really hard on him to help him like get a better attitude, to like be on point with things. And so him and Monica like butt heads over this. And then, you know, they like fight again, and he's like, "God, I love her." Or like, "I want to see her again." And so Tristan, after all of that, seeing her kids, seeing them at their worst, seeing how complicated this could be, deciding like, do I want to take on a woman where like Monica tells him like, there are 3 hearts connected to mine. You're not just trying to win me. You're not just asking for me. You'll be asking for a ready-made family, a family that like the kids aren't yours and they, you know, had a dad before you. Like, you want your own family. And Tristan is just like, "Yeah, but I'm not going to give up that easy. Like, if things don't work, they won't work, but I'm not going to back down." And so Tristan begins a single-minded campaign to win over not only Monica, because Monica's already like into him, but her 3 sons. So I'll stop now because I would do a beat by damn beat of this book, and I love it so much that when it comes out on August, I may just do a spoiler review because I plan to read the other book by this time. But it is like, it's my favorite book I read this month. It is like the feelings it made me feel, the conflict that ends up happening is very real to me. There's grief, like trigger warnings for grief in this. Monica's husband's been gone 5 years, but like things still pop up. Things still happen. The thing I will mention, and my friend Lynn just read this book, she pointed out a few things to me that I was a little blinded to because I was like, oh my God, Monica's a little bit hard to handle sometimes. So I'll be honest about that. She is a little bit like derogatory to other women sometimes in her head. And she also just like, you just want her to like snap out of it sometimes. So I want to be honest about that. It wasn't bothering me because I was so into this story. I was so into Tristan and her that it was fine. But there were some times where I would like skip her chapter to get back to a Tristan one because I was like, Monica, what are you doing? But I'll stop now. So there we go. That was my month of July. It was a lot, guys. All of the IAD books. I got to read some Lisa Kleypas. I read a lot of historical romance, which was awesome. And I have a couple new favorites. I added a new book boyfriend. I mean, Tristan, he's going to be on my book boyfriend list for many years to come. I can tell you that. And I just had a great time. So if you're interested in any of these books, I have most of them down below in my Amazon affiliate store. If you want to check out my Amazon storefront, you can find me on Goodreads, Twitter, Instagram. Those are all down below in my link tree. I love communicating with you guys. Make sure you join my Discord or join the Romance Booktuber Discord, which isn't just for booktubers. It's for if you like to talk about romance. We do it there all the time. So thank you so much for watching. I put up new videos 3 to 4 times a week, and you can see some more of them right now. Bye.